Hello and welcome. We've got another one today for the amazing animals. We're trying to get it to look like this. Um, this is what it currently looks like. So we've got to make a few little tweaks to these bits and pieces. And if you remember, we can always use inspect element. Um, this lets us mess around with things like the fonts and sizes. It also lets us add extra things temporarily. So I could say I want a text align center this. Um, Same for this guy. Let's just text align him as well. And then we have these guys as well. Now when I say temporarily, it'll temporarily keep this stuff until you refresh and then it kicks it over to the side. But it does let you play, and it does mean that you can do some experiments in the browser without having to load up Dreamweaver, which is great. And yeah, gets a lot of things in front of you so you can make some decisions. I'd like to space these out a little bit. Um, and for that I want to do something clever, so I might as well just go and do it in Dreamweaver. So let's just do that here. Let's go back to the index page, look at our styles. This is all the styles we have in the index page. One of the things we can look at, which is a H1 that we have here, is we can go into the styles, find the H1 and add to this exactly what we were looking at before. Oops, not that. Text align. Let's try this one more time. Text align center. And what that does is it just finds the center point. So if you resize the window, you can see that text continues to center. Hopefully you see that. When you look at the other bits and bobs, so this is our paragraph. And I don't know if I want to specifically do this for every single paragraph in the website. So, I'm going to give it a class. We haven't talked about classes yet, but let me just give it a class. And I'm going to say that it's a class of home. And I might do the same for this one. There you go. And I'll explain what we're doing. So when we go into, and I'm going to cut it from here. So forget that was ever there. When we talk about classes, we go into CSS and we say dot whatever name you came up with, squiggly brackets, and a specific bit of CSS. The reason you do that once is so that you can then apply it to multiple things like we did here. The big benefit there is obviously that you change the one class here and you affect multiple things, but another benefit is that you can actually apply it to particular things through your properties panel, because your properties panel will have the class appear in the drop down underneath class. So the obvious use, which is a bad use of it, is doing dot red and then saying color is red. Now you could add that class to this particular item, so we could go in and say actually I want this item to have the class red, so now that text is red. The obvious problem with this is that if you change your mind about the color and you go in here and you call it orange, you do change the color of it, but you still have a class called red that makes stuff orange. So making class names is a whole kind of tricky thing in itself, but you want to just be able to focus on what's important here and just try and, this is home for homepage, just try and be descriptive and group things around what you want them to belong to. And again, the properties thing is great because you can just quickly apply classes to things, but if you forget how to find that, you can just add this special attribute inside of your tag and tell it that it is actually belonging to the home class. So when we view that back here, you'll see that they center, but I actually want these guys to center as well. To do that, I'm going to grab the paragraph this paragraph that kind of groups all of these different images together. And I'm also going to attach that class to it. So I'm just going to say class, home, and then save that. So you'll see it in here, all nicely centered, all three things. And then I want to space them out a little bit. For that, I'm going to do something tricky. And for that, I'm going to basically say, look, if there's any images that are within an A tag, I want them to have a specific padding on them. So in this case, I'll say, look, any A tags that have an image in it, I want them to have any A tags that have an image in it, I would like them to have a padding of 20 pixels. So it's a very specific kind of rule, and that just spreads them out a little bit more. So our homepage starts to look as, what we initially wanted, what we wanted to design, and it allows all of these guys to kind of sit and be where we want them to be. Now there are some issues. This specific tag, if I did put the CSS into my style here, it would still work, but on this page I would start to have the padding applied to these guys, which I don't want. So when I take it out of here and refresh that, you see they work as normal. The problem here is obviously that what we need is very specific to the page, and what I did initially is I put it up into the style here, and that works. Obviously that works because you can see it works. But if I didn't want to have it in here, I could go and say in my CSS that I would like only things that are in the home which are A tags which contain an image tag to have the padding of 20 pixels. So now that's back in my style sheet, the external one, so there's nothing here. Refresh that, you can see these still work, and when I go to the elephant page, these still work perfectly as well. So the reason that I'm kind of pointing this out is because the trickiness in CSS is that it's kind of awesome, and we did this when we looked at Tiger, which lives in menu. It allows you to specifically single out either groups or individual things in the page, and also you can do it stacking them. So you can say, look, this rule says it has to be in here, and then it must have one of these, and then it must have one of these, and under all of those conditions, do the following, which is the stuff inside the squiggly bracket. And again, I'll put that on the next line so it's a little more consistent with the rest of them. But it's the same process. Whereas here it says, look, anything that's got the home class applied to it, make it center aligned. Whereas this other one has a specific rule saying the padding needs to be 20, as long as it's an image, as long as the image has a link around it, and as long as it's in the home page, or in an element that's been deemed to be on the home page. There is other ways to do that, but that's just to get you introduced to those concepts around CSS classes and how useful they can be, and what is also achieved is this nice centered look which we were after for a little bit for a homepage. Alright, that's it for today. Leave some comments below if you have them, otherwise I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.